Well, hey, good evening, gardening friends. I believe it is day 27 of our seed starting adventure. And as you can see, the lettuce is really starting to take off now. And surprisingly, the majority of our peppers have sprouted or are in the process of breaking through the soil. So that's um, that's interesting. So we've been at it for about 2 weeks, and finally getting the rest of those peppers to sprout. Hey Tom, what's up, man? See my peppers? The rest of them are starting to finally come up. Even the rows. So kind of a slow start for sure, but the germination rate's looking a lot better now. A lot better than what it was a couple days ago. And even this row here on the end, finally, we're getting some to sprout. I see at least two. As for this box here, nothing yet, but it's not even been a week yet. I put another gallon of water in this. That's awesome. We didn't get anything done in in the garden today. We it was just kind of an odd day. Well, one, we got to bed kind of late last night. It's probably the latest I've stayed up in a while. I think I was up till about 1, and then we slept in. I don't know. I didn't feel good. I woke up and just kind of had a headache and took a little while to get going today. That was most of us, but once we got going, um, since we're not doing a big Easter get together or anything like that, what we ended up doing was Easter baskets. Yeah, yeah, I can't. I don't know, man. The light starts streaming in through the window. That wakes me up, and then usually my mouth's dry. Where you kind of get dehydrated through the night, where you have to go to the bathroom. Need to get up and go potty. Um, I can't remember the last time I slept that late, but we did Easter baskets for the family. So I've got all those pretty nice half bushel baskets we got from Sunrise Cooperative. Yeah. Oh shoot. Maybe if I get a catheter or something, I could just hook up and then not even have to get out of bed, huh? Is that what you're telling me? That's terrible. Uh, we got these half bushel baskets, and my wife had stayed up late yesterday. Yeah, I hope not. She stayed up late yesterday too, making bread. Made this challah bread and made homemade pretzels. Man, those were good. I told her, I was like, man, we're gonna have to make that a family staple and make those every week. But made a bunch of stuff. Wrapped up some toilet paper. We had all these little thoughtful gifts. Totally her idea. She's kind of the giver in the family. I mean, I enjoy giving, but it's not my natural inclination to like, hey, let's do all this like complex stuff, nice stuff for other people. Um, that's not really my band. That's most of our family. That's not their band either. Extended family. I mean, nobody really is calling and checking on us, or bringing stuff over, or thoughtful things like that. It's of all the family, usually it's my wife. She comes up with the idea and wants to initiate something that's just in her nature, just loves doing that. And it takes me a while to come around, but then once we get going, I can get behind that. So anyway, that's what we did. I had all these goodies and stuff, and then my dad actually though he ended up getting some eggs for the like one of those big giant plastic eggs for each of the kids, and filled it with, I think, like there was some money and candy and all that, and hid them on his property for them to find. So we did go over to his house to bring, or drop the baskets off to all our family members, and then um, kids got to hunt their little eggs, and we hung out for a little bit. So we did that, and then we ended up over my brother-in-law's. We actually started at his house, and he wasn't home, and so we left his stuff there, and then went out to my wife's my in-laws, spent some time out there, caught up with them a little bit, and then drove out to my sister-in-law's house. They're in the process of moving right now. They're going through a divorce, whatnot, which is a little odd for us because we get along great with both of them for the most part. When we spent time with my brother-in-law and then my sister-in-law, but we were out there while he was getting his stuff. They were, I guess, in the process of getting the stuff moved out of the house because they sold the house. So anyway, we picked up some recliners and some furniture for my sister who's getting married in September. Brought all that back to the house, and then loaded up. I was a couple nights ago telling you about all this stuff. Yeah, I know. We ended up all that stuff I was telling you about that we've been kind of that's been kind of dumped on us or whatever. We finally got rid of most of it. So we got rid of 3 recliners, including the heavy one that was the one that my wife's grandfather had. Yeah, I know. It's all family though. We kept social distance. We didn't. I think we maintained pretty much like 10-foot distance from everyone. I tried to stay outside as much as I could, though I had to go into one house to get the recliner. But we were definitely far apart. Like we weren't hugging them or anything like that. So we tried to be careful. And then when we were at my dad's, it was all outside, like, again, spread apart, stuff like that. So we weren't like sharing a meal with him or in his house or anything like that. Yeah, Frank. Oh, shoot. Hey, I haven't forgotten you, man. I was going through the seats today. I do plan to get those mailed out likely this week, assuming the post office is still operating. I was reading some news. I think the Washington Post had an article where Trump is adamant about not providing any kind of funding, like emergency funding for them. Like he's offered them the option to take out a loan, like $10 billion or whatever, but is not providing any kind of emergency relief. And so they're projecting that maybe by like, if Congress doesn't intervene, like by June, the whole thing may be shuttered and they'll have to do something. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I think some of it has to do with Trump's feud with Jeff Bezos and like Amazon, and trying to, well, and also just trying to get it privatized. Yeah, it's crazy. So I better get them mailed. I got a few more emails today from seed companies where they're not accepting any new orders until they get caught up with the existing backlog. They got so many people here lately that have been placing orders for seeds and stuff. And I think in Michigan, they've put a ban on sending seeds and like closing down the nurseries and stuff like that, because I guess there's still a pretty bad outbreak out there or whatever, like third worst in the nation. Be kind of interesting to see how it's all going to play out. Last time we spent the day out kind of dropping goodies off to everybody, and then got rid of a bunch of junk. Yeah, which is crazy. I don't think that'll happen here, because the state's been pretty good, and it seems like our governor's pretty level-headed about stuff. What about Colorado, Frank? They issued any kind of crazy stuff yet? While we're chatting, I'll take you for a little tour again. Yeah. There's a little bug dropped into the water bottle bag. Well, that's good. So I did pick up a little goodie here. The light's not real good, but this is a drill press my dad had. Ironically, we'd actually gifted this to him probably like 15, 16 years ago. Tom. But it's still pretty nice, and he's got a stand. Yeah. It's got a stand. It's a little rough. It needs some TLC and stuff. But I think functionally everything still works on it. But I was thinking if I end up doing the Mittleider irrigation system, that thing's going to come in handy, because instead of having to hand drill all the holes, I could set up a jig or whatever, mark the holes, and then run it through there, and just crank it out without breaking drill bits, hopefully. Yeah. No. Yeah. So I might play around with it tomorrow and see if I can get it fired up and everything. The belts still look good on it. I think Dad's been taking care of it, but he ended up giving that to me because he inherited or got his sister. They used to own a woodworking business and stuff, and they had all kinds of really cool tools, drill presses, all kinds of stuff. They had an auction a while back to get rid of all that stuff. Yeah, it's going to take a while to do it, depending on how much piping I do. But if I do the backyard boxes and just experiment and do like a line for each one, we could see how it turns out. But anyway, my dad ended up getting a pretty nice press from that auction deal that I guess his sister gave him. I think that's what happened. So he didn't need two of them and ended up giving me the one. So that was kind of cool. And he'd been on me for a while to get it. So we kind of swapped junk in a way, because, well, not junk, but yeah, speaking of wood lathes, so we knew this guy When we lived in Indiana, he was a wood turner, and man, his stuff's all over the place. Actually, the president of Subaru, that's in Lafayette, Indiana, one time came to his little garage and bought every bowl, everything that he had done on the wood lathe, and well, I tell you, we had a little sweatshop going on this weekend because my wife's got a sewing machine and my daughter has got one, so we had both of them set up, and I had my two oldest daughters. They were making the homemade masks where they got instructions online. I guess Deaconess Hospital down in Evansville put instructions online on how to do them because they, a while back, this couple weeks ago, appealed to the public, to help them, like, hey, can you make some PPE stuff for us, because we're going to be hurting here. And so they put instructions online for them to do that, and they turned out pretty nice. It took them a little while to figure it out, and they're not maybe the easiest things to make, considering they don't sew a whole lot, but they did. That was one of the things in the little care package too, that stuff we were dropping off. It was kind of cool. I think it was that, roll of toilet paper, a loaf of bread, and some shortcake and stuff. So, what about you guys? You guys doing anything for Easter? I don't know if Frank saw my peppers. Yeah, we got the ham out tonight. We're gonna be starting that first thing in the morning. I was telling Tom most of my pepper sprouts are coming up now. Even this row here that nothing. I've got two sprouts I can see that are finally coming up, and then nothing in these yet. But it's not even been a week. But it's 2 weeks altogether. Well, that's cool. Yeah, there's a trying to think. There's a place in town that, because there's an old drive-in in town where Tom and I live here. It's the Melody, and I think there's a church that's renting it out, or at least they were doing services in the summertime, the spring. I don't know about now if anybody's doing anything with it, but that was an idea initially, um, doing something like that, or it'd be like drive-in style. Oh shoot! We tuned in this last week. We've got a couple of Messianic Jews that attend our church or whatnot, and they got some pretty cool insight on, like, the different traditions and rituals and stuff. And so they had one they streamed, I think this past Thursday, was his Seder meal, and the guy was in the garb and all that, and basically explaining the meaning of the Last Supper and all the symbolism in it, and just kind of how, to the very detail, like, Christ fulfilled all of that. It's just kind of neat when you really start studying and looking into stuff, like how complex, like how detailed, but how everything kind of um, comes together. There's just a lot of meaning, that we don't understand because we're not Jewish. There's a lot of stuff we just don't have like the context to understand, as fully, unless you really take the time to study it out. But it's pretty cool. We actually been to, I don't know if you guys have ever been to a Seder meal, but it's been probably about 10 years ago. We actually went to one where they had the bitter herbs and, the bread wafers, and then just all the different elements of that meal. That's pretty cool. But tomorrow I think they're doing online stuff, so we're gonna tune into that and then just kind of celebrate here, have a meal and stuff like that. It's gonna be pretty low key, nothing crazy where we got everybody coming over. My dad was pretty put out initially by all that. I think it's taken him a while to adjust to everything. I think there's a little bit of a like, kind of old school, like, well, I'm healthy, most people are gonna recover, like not taking it as serious maybe as he should on that. And I think that actually this past week, my sister ended up going to the grocery store and bought like, I don't know, from what we understand, like $200 worth of groceries, and like Dad was a little upset by that. And I think the conversation was something like, well, I got all this stuff, so there's no reason for you to go. No, we don't. It's been a real mild winter. We're in Ohio, and so we didn't get any snow. In fact, it was warming up today. Now it was in like the 30s, upper 40s, but it got down to 32. I think the last 2 nights, and it's been kind of cool this weekend, but it's starting to warm back up. I think we only got like one like significant snow that had a few inches, but nothing like what you guys get out there. Yeah, it probably did get up to 60 today. I'm gonna try to start tomatoes tomorrow. I gotta make another Mrs. Green Thumb video for that, and I was telling no, yeah. Oh wow. Remember your mom? Wasn't she into flowers and stuff? I think I remember one time you were gonna, or maybe you shared a photo album of her flowers or whatever, and then maybe was gonna do a video, like trying to talk her into do a video to share all of like what she knows about flowers. Is that right? Yeah, that's pretty cool. And my aunt, she's like, oh, that's awesome. She actually runs she's like in her mid 80s now, I believe, and still going pretty strong. Has a flower farm where she sells wholesale to the local florist down in Evansville, Indiana. And has been doing that for years. They've slowed down a little bit because I think her husband, he's got to be close to 90 and has had some heart issues here lately, so they've kind of slowed things down. But and usually they do a big old Easter dinner too. My dad usually drives over for that, and they do Thanksgiving and stuff like that. But they're not doing anything this year because of the virus and trying to abide by things, not spread stuff or risk, take the risk. Let's plug this in. So did you get all those potatoes planted, Tom? I'm sure it's going to be a good garden this year. You're doing mitt lighter. Unless the weather is just crazy, like last year when it was like record precipitation, like 50% of farms initially hadn't anything. Yeah. A lot of the farmers weren't able to plant their fields, and I think some of them did. It was kind of later. They were still able to get a crop, but a lot of them didn't. There was just a lot of fields around here that stayed fallow. It's had a lot of nasty weeds and stuff growing up in them, and so unless it's something like that where it gets crazy, it's probably gonna be a good year, I'd imagine. If we're permitted. But who knows? Again, like with the way things are kind of playing out, at least in other states. But I'm excited. I'm hopeful. Hopefully, we'll be able to get something planted and get a harvest. Well, let's see here. Let's check out the worm bin. See if I still got that slime growing. There's still a little bit there, but it looks like it's kind of dried out a little bit. Yeah, which is crazy. I mean, as busy as Kroger's been, I don't know what they got to worry about. You drive past them, they've got a full parking lot like all the time now. Yeah, that's a good idea. The mulching and stuff. I need to make a video of the garden just to show kind of where it's at right now. But we had this past winter, I think it was December, but it took me till December to get it all spread. But there was probably about 8 to 12 inches of leaf mulch across the whole thing. This is like a 50 by 100 area that I'm playing in, and we got a pretty good layer of mulch. The township came in with like 2 big old truckloads or dump truckloads, and so it took a while to spread everything, but most of it's still on the ground. I mean, it's gone down a little bit, but there's still a lot of it that's there, and it's really suppressed um, the weeds. The biggest thing is the that Canadian thistle stuff. I need to just take my kids out there and spend a day digging all that out because it's just so pervasive. Yeah, was what's kind of cool. My dad living in the township, he they do the leaf pickup, and there's a ton of trees out where he lives and stuff all along those neighborhoods. So people will blow their leaves out to the road, and then they have the road crew come out and pick them all up. And then basically, I talked to the guy. I called up the county garage and just asked him, like, hey, can you bring a couple loads to this address? He called me back to verify everything, and it took him a little while, but ultimately he did get the loads out there, and it took, like I said, a long time to get it all spread. I got a couple videos on it. I think I was playing around, but yeah. And what's kind of amazing is a lot of that stuff will just melt away. By the end of summer, it's like that cover is gone. That carbon oxidizes or whatever. Hey, Stone. Yeah, no problem, man. You put it back real nice. I was like, man, did you back that in there, or did you do that by hand? And while we were out and about, there you go. I'm impressed. Yeah, I think they do. Um, and it may keep the pests down initially too, because I mean that's an extra layer of stuff that they're having to try to burrow through to get up to the surface. Once they hatch. Um, I don't know, but what Tom referenced, how he didn't use any kind of cover, um, which that works too as long as the plants are getting what they need. But yeah, it seems like the worms probably do. A lot of times when we were digging around in it initially, there's a bunch of fat ones, where they've come up and they're taking pieces of that down in their burrows and munching on that. It's kind of cool how it all works out. I just remember reminds me of this study I was reading. I guess Elaine Ingram. I don't know if you heard of her, but she's got a whole like soil school or whatever. She's totally into the kind of the natural systems, like trying to unlock stuff in the soil through like utilizing the soil food web and all of that. But anyway, they studied, I think it's the oh, funny. He should have pulled him out, saved him. That's funny. But they were studying. I think it's the largest conifer forest in. I'm wanting to say it's United States, over in Washington State, or something like that. But they were studying, I guess the fungal network that's there. Like there's all this. Like if you're walking in the woods, there's these white strands. It's basically the hyphae from this fungal network that's all over the place and interconnected. And they studied it, and this thing went for like miles. And and it's this integrated kind of nutrient exchange that's happening, is like the hyphae's tapping into the fungal networks tapping into nutrients in the soil, like unlocking it and making it in like form that the plants can take up, and then they're exchanging it through this huge network. But what they saw is like during the fall and winter, the thing like expands like crazy and just gets real huge, and then in the spring when all the macroorganisms start waking up and getting more active, and then even like the animals and things like that, they start eating that network down, and they eat it down to a certain point, and then it's this cycle, and then as they're eating it down, they're recycling all those nutrients and stuff like that as they're excreting it, and all of that, and then fungal network ends up growing back in the fall and the winter. And it's just kind of crazy how it's all connected. Consequently, like tilling, like tears all that up. But again, if you're following the mint ladder method or whatnot, it doesn't matter as much. The soil's viewed more as just an anchor for the plant, and you're giving the plant everything it needs in terms of the nutrients, everything that we're aware of that it needs. Yeah. Oh, shoot. Yeah, I haven't found any tomatoes out in the forest either. That's funny. So I don't know, I think the main thing, as long as you can as long as you can grow stuff, that's the main thing, and it's sustainable, and I mean there's still some cost either way, either in natural system in terms of time and trying to gather resources and cover and putting inputs, trying to build the soil and whatnot. But the neatest ones I've seen, and there's a couple people on YouTube doing, is like the food forest type concept where they've got all these like different fruit trees and oh, that's cool. But they got all these trees in there where they're providing like the living root that attracts all the fungal network and stuff, and then planting their garden. Yeah, it is kind of weird. You can spend a lot of money too. Um, Doing, you think about like Miracle Grow, like Scott's Core and all the different products they sell. Yeah, permaculture. Yeah, speaking of tomatoes the size of a grape, there's a variety that we grew, and I may grow it again if I've got seed this year. It's called Rissentraub. I think it's a German heirloom or something, but it's does real well just on the ground, like as a you know just let the plant sprawl and whatever, and then it's like these huge clusters of cherry tomatoes, basically, like all over. And there's another one. Yeah, those are cherry tomatoes. There's another one though, and it's been a while since I've grown it. It's a hybrid. It's called Super Sauce, and they've got it to where it's basically Roma style tomatoes that are the size of like a quart size mason jar. And we did those one year, and they actually were. Ended up taking pictures where I had a mason jar in one hand and I had a tomato in my other, and it was literally like fit the volume of the mason jar. It was pretty impressive, and it tasted decent too. It wasn't like you know, tasteless or whatever. Yeah, it's crazy. So what are you doing for Easter, Stone? A couple of us are having ham and we're streaming church. Which I'm feeling that's probably what you're going to be doing too. Oh, see, you're going to be hanging with family. Just us. We're not having anybody over. I mean, I guess we're streaming with you. Well, hey, Mrs. Green Thumb. Welcome to the little chat here. I got Tom, Frugal Prepper, Frank, who I hadn't talked to in years till here recently, last couple days, and my buddy Stone are all on. Happy Easter! Hey, I popped in, your channel recently a couple times, and it's that game you played the other night. That was a lot of fun, where you had the pictures you were posting, and having it was what was it, geography or city trivia or something, world trivia. Yep, that's a good idea. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. How many more people you got in your pet day? Yeah, we got a miniature dachshund who's kind of she's a little bit of a stinker. Yeah, I need to. I don't have the seed pack. I put the seeds back in the fridge, but I've got a variety that it's called Dallas Wilson Cuban, and I hope the seeds are still good. But I think that may be the one that I enter into your challenge because, and I'll have to find out. I know I still have the picture. I need to go back and look, but I've one of the ones we harvested. It was it was pretty big. My daughter had it on her stomach, and it covered her whole stomach. That's hilarious, Frank. The challenge that Mrs. Green Thumb is having, yes, her tomato challenge, and it's not too late to enter. Um, you got to make what, 3 videos at least at a minimum, one, and you have to have the pound sign Mrs. Green Thumb's tomato challenge in the title, which I changed my title to include that after got some feedback from you guys, but yeah, lots of time to start, but you gotta make 3 videos. One where you reference the challenge. You gotta reference the challenge where you're showing you're planting the seeds, and the next one is where you're showing the plant growing, and then the third one is where you show yourself harvesting the tomato and weighing it, I think. And if you win, I think you get some Canadian money and some other stuff. Now I asked if there was any consolation, if there were any consolation prizes for the losers, and the only consolation prize is that you have some tomatoes you can eat. Yeah, there's a lot of fishing up Canada. I get my wife's cousin. She's married to an outdoorsman, and they plan all kinds of trips. Oh shoot! Yeah, big fish. Like I mean, yeah. He likes doing the outdoor type stuff too, or like roughing it, where they go to like a primitive cabin, and it is what it is. I have not seen the indoor greenhouse yet. Stone is in Ohio. He lives in the same city as me and Tom. We live in Springfield, Ohio. Yeah, it's How late is it for me now? Right now, well, right now it's like quarter after 11, so it's getting kind of late. I've had this bad habit of I had this bad habit of live streaming here lately, kind of late at night, like 10:30, whatnot. Mostly because I got 5 kids, and we gotta. It takes a while to get them situated. We got 3 teenage daughters who like to stay up late and whatnot, so it's tough getting everybody kind of settled down. Yeah, I know. Uh, but I was trying to jump on here about every night for at least for 30 days to see what I can do seed starting wise with the peppers. This is actually my grow room. We can do a little tour. Yeah, it's 9:15. This is at my place. Well, we actually rent from my in-laws. We moved over here like it's a crazy story, but 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago. It'll be 5 years ago in May, Memorial Day weekend. We moved over here from Northwest Indiana. It was pretty cool. There's been a lot of crazy stuff that's happened too um, since we moved over here. But basically, the gist of it is that we're kind of in our tough spot with, I don't know, just everything. Life was kind of, believe it or not, just kind of, it was rough. And my job was rough. I was a delivery supervisor for the Postal Service, no less. And that was just crazy because all the different departments have like competing goals, and like nothing's aligned, and you're working with like 4 major labor unions that, are pretty much against anything that you're being asked to do or implement. And then the management style that they promoted was totally like Theory X, like It was just crazy. Um, so anyway, we're just kind of at a point where I guess mentally just kind of where you kind of get, and I don't know if you can relate to this, you probably can, but you get institutionalized in your thinking, that this is all there, that you just need to gut it out. And so kind of mentally prepared to kind of do time, so to speak. And I don't know, just kind of burned out in general, just kind of checked out in general, detached from what was going on in some ways to cope with it. We were real involved in church and stuff like that, and pretty devoted, involved with things. And we actually, at years prior, had considered a move to Ohio because there were some jobs open that I thought, I'd be competitive for sure. And actually came over, visited, stayed with my in-laws here, actually in the house we're living in now. And then came back. I don't know. We ended up spending about a week just kind of like praying about everything, whether or not to take try to pursue that. And there was a lot of other stuff kind of going on. But kind of no lie, it's kind of like 5 o'clock in the morning, like trumpet blasts, like, and the words kind of laid on me were, "Do not confuse your desire for change and my will." So that was interesting. So I kind of took that as a cue that, yeah, we just need to like back off of that, drop that for a while. So that was like 7 years prior to 2015 when we made the move. Well, then I guess the summer of 2014 was when things were just really hitting the skids personally for me. Just kind of checked out, um, resentful, and I was gardening then. That was kind of like the outlet for me, and a lot of it had to do with what was going on with my job and just things that kind of reached this point. I've been with Postal Service like 17 years. And anyway, gardening was kind of an outlet for me, to like stress relief and all that. But we ended up kind of praying about things again. Like, man, if we're supposed to be doing something different, we're missing something, like, Lord, if you can change anything. And so that was kind of my attitude about it. And whereas my wife was a lot more humble and like, pleading, right? And then so I don't know, it was just crazy. October 2014, I get this phone call from my dad, and he's like, "Oh yeah, so mom's in ICU and things aren't looking good. I thought you should know." Click. Okay, so and he normally doesn't communicate like that, and so I knew it was kind of bad. So come to find out, my mom had like congestive heart failure, and they had kind of been hiding that from us, or they're pretty private about their health and things like that, and we could tell that things were not quite right. My mom was handicapped, so anyway, she had to was going through that. Where apparently what happened was she had some water in her lungs. They'd gone to the hospital to get that drained off, and when they were doing that, she went into cardiac arrest, and like everything just kind of shut down. And so it's crazy. So next thing I know, I found myself driving that night, to be with my dad, like support him, like figure out what we were going to do. Brother flies in, and make a long story short, a couple days later, she wasn't coming out of it, but they kept her on life support and things like that to allow the family to come in and all that. So, and basically made a group decision that, yeah, this isn't sustainable. We just need to let her go. And so that's what we did. So then that set off a whole chain of events, because then my dad at the time, yeah, I know, it was crazy, man, or crazy. Thanks for that. set off a whole chain of events where my dad and my mom, they've been retired for about 7 years, and they had their like dream house and stuff, and they'd done real well. They were like hardworking and clean living and all that. And so it's like 4,500 square foot house. He's got all these bedrooms, and he knew that things were kind of rough for me, so he just kind of, I think part of it just not wanting to be alone, and just thinking how neat it would be if we were to be closer to them, because at the time we were 3 hours away from them. He kind of put the offer out that, hey, why don't you come move to Evansville? Why don't you quit your job and you can live with me for free, and you can, just take your time and find something you really want to do. I was like, that was just kind of crazy. But it got our wheels turning, thinking like, well, yeah, maybe we should consider that. Yeah. And so again, just kind of through this whole kind of season of praying through things and like seeking counsel and testing the waters on things, and it's kind of one of these things. Normally, my channel, I talk all about gardening and stuff, and I don't reference like, uh, religion a whole lot really or anything like that. But this seems pertinent to share given it's Easter. So anyway, we're pursuing all this stuff, just kind of weighing it out, and it seems like a lot of, at least my personal experience with like the Lord and like praying about things and whatnot, is a lot of times it's like walking through a cloud. You know enough to know to take the next step, but you don't oftentimes see clearly to see the whole thing play out, right? And so that's kind of how it was. It was more just kind of trusting like in the Lord's providence, right? Like his providential care that he's going to like ultimately protect you from making a mistake and help you get to where he wants you to be. And so that was a lot of it, just kind of praying through like, bringing him into the decision making, like, it's cultivating that personal relationship and like asking for wisdom and guidance and whatnot. And so that's what we did, and actually started pursuing Evansville, and that door kind of was shut. I ended up getting like 2 different interviews, like going through this kind of rigmarole process, thinking, well, initially I'll get a transfer down there, and then I'll find something I really want to do, whatever, just so that I'm still working. The whole idea of just quitting my job and go down there, that seemed kind of foolish. I didn't want to do that. And so after the second time of going through that whole rigmarole interview process, it was like, is there something else that I'm missing here? And so there was a third opportunity that popped up where it was in, I'm trying to think of the city. It was about an hour away from Evansville, and it would have been a lateral transfer for me. All I had to basically do, what I found out, was just write a request, a formal request with my resume to the postmaster that was running that office, and she could pick me up because I was running an office that was like double the size that she was doing, had experience in all the things that she was having trouble with. And I actually had a conversation with her, and this was like in March of 2015, I think, when we got to this point. And then I just felt this kind of warning, like, no, that's just wait on that. You got 2 weeks, because the application window was 2 weeks. And I was like, why don't you just wait? Don't make a decision until you have to, and just start, seek the Lord on this. So that's what I did. Well, in the interim, my wife's parents, who live in Springfield, Ohio, call up and say, hey, we want to, we got some things we need to talk to you about. We'd like to come visit you guys. It's like, okay. And so we were just trying to figure out, they wouldn't tell us what they wanted to talk about or anything like that, which we thought was kind of weird. And her dad had prostate cancer before, so we thought maybe it was like bad news, just kind of assuming the worst. So they ended up coming to visit, and they said, "Yeah, we wanted to just meet with you guys and just let you know we're going to be retiring really soon, probably in the next year or so." And we're like, "Well, that's great." And what else? And he said, "Well, we're thinking about downsizing and trying out condo life, and we like to travel, and we want to do this, that, and the other. And so we know that you guys are pursuing, looking at potentially moving to Evansville. Why don't maybe consider, have you considered coming to Springfield?" And it's like, yeah, maybe like 7 years ago. But it was just kind of, there was something about that that sparked an interest in going that route. And so they started talking to us, and they say, "Oh, and by the way, I guess her mom's getting ready to retire from this company, and basically they're getting ready to add an HR manager because they'd grown to the point they needed somebody dedicated to that." And even though I had no formal like training in that, I had like a liberal arts degree in like religion and political science, and then all this experience at the crazy postal service. They said, "We think you could probably transition to that and learn whatever you needed to. If this is something you're interested in, I could put your resume in and then just see what happens." So that's basically what we did. We ended up spending about 2 weeks, praying on that, and just felt like that was kind of the direction we needed to go. And there was kind of a verse that came to mind. It's in Colossians 3. It talks about how let the peace of God rule your heart, and let the word of God dwell richly within you. And the whole idea with that, if you look up the words and stuff, that whole idea of letting the peace of God rule your heart is the imagery of an umpire, making a decision for you. It's either safe or it's out, so I thought that was real good. Like, yeah, I didn't really feel safe, or this wasn't clear on here, so it was wait. Whereas this, it's kind of like green light. Like, yeah, I want you to keep pursuing. So we did. We ended up applying to the job. Initially didn't hear back, and then I get a phone call out of the blue from the owner of the company, and he talked to me, but conversation didn't go like super great initially. Like, I didn't really think that was probably the right fit for me. And so, but at that point we'd already committed, we're coming over. We're going to move Memorial Day weekend. And so mentally already shifted like in that direction. We were trying to figure out what we were going to do with our house, and decide we ultimately were going to rent it. And so we were going through the process of trying to find people there. We ended up getting that lined up, getting this date lined up. My wife's like, she knew it was serious. Started going through the process of like purging our house. I mean, it was just crazy. But we had a lot of help. We had a lot of friends that kind of started coming alongside and helping us, kind of prepare, even though I didn't have a job and wasn't sure that was going to work out. So then I was like, well, yeah, so true. So then I was like, you know what? I'll get it transferred to Springfield, Ohio. Delivery supervisor is like the worst job in the postal service. Surely they, and I'd seen that job posted over the years, like every year, like the main office here was posting it, where they obviously bad like work environment, culture, and they were just turning and burning people, right? And so I figured, well, worst case scenario, I mean, mentally I could do it if I had to. And so started looking at it, and I was like, well, maybe Dublin, Ohio. Let's shoot for that. So started calling around. I remember I took a week off. This was in April, and it's crazy. It is so crazy. So again, kind of getting some information, and so I could get an inside track and try to get a hold of somebody at the office to call and all that. did that. I was trying to get through my phone. My cell phone, for whatever reason, was all jacked up, like not. And I was getting frustrated because it wasn't letting me call. And I, um, and then all of a sudden hit again with another, story. As this time it's Abraham, Isaac, and Ishmael, and the words were like, "Wait on the promise," and that just kind of hit me like, okay, like clearly I'm being warned, not for whatever reason, not to pursue this, and just wait. Wait, and it's like, what was promised? Well, maybe this job, and like we know we've got a house that we're going to be renting for a pretty cheap rate initially, anyway, till we could sell our house or whatever's going to work there. So came home, told my wife all that, and she's, and I was just all kind of teared up about it, and I was like, I guess I just wait. So then later that month, yeah. So later that month, I get a call back from the company I'm working for now, and they wanted me to come on site for an interview. And so we made arrangements, came over, and it was like I spent like 4 hours with the owner, just talking about things and finding we were on the same page for a lot of different stuff, just kind of aligned. And he's a believer. Seemed like we shared the same values, all of that, and it just looked like, wow, maybe this is the right, is going to work out or whatever. And so we're pursuing that, and then the housing was like, we got our renters, and then next thing you know, Memorial Day weekend's coming up, and I hadn't heard a call back yet, right? And so at that point, I was like, well, worst case scenario, I'll just commute. I can work, stay in Indiana, rent whatever I got to do, crash with somebody, whatever, work through the week, and then on the weekends, come home. So my boss at my office was willing to work with me because she knew that it's only a matter of time before I'd be out. So we had a going away party, I think the weekend before, and everything's going. We're totally like confident. I mean, like we've been encouraged in so many different ways. I mean, I was reading the Bible and stuff, and like there was all this stuff just jumping out. All these promises, like the Lord was kind of like personalizing, right? Where showing me things that in the context there, it was for like Israel or whatever, but he was like saying, just like that, I'm doing this for you. And one of them was I think in Isaiah like 40, where it talks about, those who open the Lord will renew their strength, they'll rise up on wings like eagles, they'll run and not grow weary, they'll walk and not grow faint. That kind of stuck with us. Well, then we were kind of going through the Easter story, the Exodus story with the kids, and there's a passage. It's in like Exodus 19, I think it is, where they were at Mount Sinai, and the Lord calls Moses up on the mountain to get the Ten Commandments. And as he's going up, like about halfway up, he starts talking to Moses and say, "Hey, remember what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you up on eagle's wings and brought you to myself." And then he reminded me of the other verse, and then it was like connecting, like that's what he was doing. He was bringing me back, like he was going to restore something that was lost through like the years of just, how life can get, and it can shake your faith, and it can desensitize you to the Lord, and you can grow apathetic and just kind of check out, and get discouraged. And it's kind of like he was going to heal all that, like he was going to restore and give back. He's going to bring me back to himself, like where it all started, right? Just a simple walk with him. Man, it just crushed me. I was just like, man, really? Like, yeah, like there is a God. Like this is real. Like, I mean, he's like laying stuff on me, like revealing himself to me big time, like, and it was just awesome, like encouraging, like I don't know. So anyway, we're having this going away party, again encouraged and all this, but all kinds of different stuff. And we had these people show up that we're kind of acquaintances with. I mean, we kids played together growing up, but we kind of not seen them in a while. And well, anyway, they said, "Hey, we heard you're moving, blah blah. That's great. You know, we just started thinking, you know, maybe you were gonna need a place to stay or something. You know, we got this apartment that's gonna be open the month of June. You know, but then we're renting it to students again in July. You know, students are leaving into May. It's open. It's fully furnished. You know, you don't need anything. It's even got Wi-Fi. Blah blah." It's like, are you kidding me? And they said, that's our gift to you. We want to offer that to you for the month of June if you need it. And I was like, well, actually, we're going to be out of our house the end of May and beginning of June. I need a place. So yeah, that'll work. So it was just kind of cool. Like, we didn't even have to worry about it. And like and the best part, it was free. They were just getting, like, you can stay there for free. You know, just all you gotta do is buy your own food, right? So I could do that. So that's what I did, and then basically we moved over Memorial Day weekend 2015, and that was really cool. It was really stressful because part of it was there was such a haste for my in-laws to get out that as we were unloading and unpacking things, we were using the same boxes to pack up their house, where there was just a lot of stuff that had not been moved yet for them, and then getting that over. So it was just, we were exhausted going through that process, but it's just really cool. And then the end of that week, I'd taken that week off. I get a call from the company I'm working for now, and we were in like I was hanging out with my dad, like he had been helping us, and it was the owner again. He's like, "Hey, we want you to come back on site for another round of interviews." Yeah, that's what it is, Tom. Because I did meet you before online anyway, before we ended up coming over. But so I was like, okay, well, I moved over here now, so I can be there like in a half hour. So it was kind of spur of the moment, and we ended up, you know, getting out arranged, and then went in for the interview. Spent another like 4 hours with them, and met some of the other managers and all that good stuff. And then the following Monday, I was set to head back, and was going to be driving back to Indiana, and I get an email and it's a job offer, right? So it was just, so I ended up accepting, and knocked out my drug screen and physical on the way back to Indiana, because this is Dayton, Ohio. So I just stopped at the urgent care. Yeah. It's just amazing, man. So knocked that out, and then basically stayed another 3 weeks, like basically the month of June, there, and commuted back and forth and whatnot. So worked through the week, come back on the weekends, and then actually ended up starting at the end of June. On my birthday was my start date, which was just, that was kind of cool how that worked out, you know. So, you know, and so I don't know, that was pretty awesome, how that all happened. And then I don't know, then it was like real rough. We got over here, and that's probably a story for another time, because it's getting kind of late. You just, like, you know, once we got over here, what happened, right? I mean, part of what's happened is we're still renting here, making YouTube videos, gardening, we're homeschooling the kids, we're living life and all of that. But there's been some other interesting things that have happened, in the last 5 years of being over here in Ohio. Um, and there's still things yet to come. We're just kind of taking it a day at a time and stuff like that. But anyway, I guess that little snippet, um, sharing with you guys, hopefully that encourages you a little bit. I think the big takeaway for me is like, yeah, the Lord, He does exist, and He does care, He does see, He knows, and He's able to do above and beyond what we can even think or imagine. I mean, I would have never imagined how He changed everything, really. Yeah. And, and it was all, the big thing that He was doing was bringing me back, like He knew that I wasn't growing. He knew that I would personally had stagnated, in my faith and just was in a bad place, and my family too. I mean, there's been all kinds of just benefits to coming over here, and namely for the kids. And I think the big thing too for the kids was like they got to see, like, I mean, they literally were a part of all of that. Like they saw, like were they were with us in the circumstances before, and then as everything was happening, we were unpacking it for them, just like sharing with them, like being real, what we were doing, why we were doing it, what we were praying about, and like they literally saw like the Lord move mountains. Yeah, yeah, and it was just, you know, it was really cool. It changed the trajectory of our family, of our kids, and obviously meeting all these people in the last 5 years. Um, so it's been cool. Yeah, I'm grateful for it. So anyway, that's probably just thought I'd share that. And He is risen. I mean, tomorrow you know it's pretty cool to be able to celebrate that and like actually have a personal experience, with the Lord. Um, that's one interesting thing, like studying the scriptures and stuff like that. There's a word that shows up a lot. When it talks about knowing God, it's this word called gnosko. And what it means is knowing God through personal experience, like intimate knowledge of the Lord and knowing Him through personal experience, like as He's revealing Himself, like He personally reveals things and helps you to understand aspects that you didn't know about Him before. It's kind of like in the Old Testament, He was like, um, when Moses asked what His name was, He's like, I am who I am. Basically, I am who you need me to be. I am who I'm going to be. I'm going to reveal myself personally. You're going to know through personal experience who I am. You're going to know that I'm everything you need, basically. And that's pretty amazing, how it's all kind of, again, connected. Man, I could probably talk hours. We could keep going, like, probably all night long. Oh, shoot. But I should probably call it a night at this. Yeah, I've actually kind of toyed around with the idea of maybe starting another channel that's just all about that, right? Talking about the Lord and doing, maybe studying out some things and whatnot. Um, I don't know. Or maybe it's best just to share here and there, not. Yeah. Yeah, it was an emotional roller coaster, man. You were with me in it, weren't you? No, it's cool. I mean, everybody's got their story, and it's just neat. It's encouraging. It's kind of like what it says in Revelation. They overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony, right? So there's something to be said about being able to share, you know, um, your personal experience and like what the Lord's done and encourage others. Pepper. Yeah, because this one might get flagged. It'll be interesting when we end tonight whether or not this uploads or whether it gets flagged as, you know, pepper. Yeah, that's true too. Was it say don't cast your pearls to swine? Yeah. Well, I probably will start talking about it a little bit more and share other aspects. What time is it anyway? So I'm streaming this on the iPhone, so I can't see what the time is. I just know we've gone for about almost an hour and a half. So yeah, it's almost midnight. Oh shoot. Well, you guys have been gracious listening to me. I talk a lot. Yeah, 9:51. Uh, but I should probably wrap it up. But we'll have to hang out here again. I'm gonna try to make it 30 days. We're at 27, so 3 more days I'll be at 30. And then maybe not every night after that. All right, well, you guys have a good evening and every other. Yeah. Oh, shoot. Well, I'll catch you guys again probably pretty soon. Oh, shoot. Been good at chatting with you guys. You guys have been gracious with me. Yeah, happy Easter. He is risen. We'll see you guys later.